Welcome in, everybody. This is your self-care staffing for Friday, July 3rd, 2020. I am Lou Pascal. I'm the school social worker in the Manchester City Schools in Manchester, Tennessee. I'm here to remind you that you are your most important client. If you don't find a way to treat yourself that way, life will find a way to prompt you, and it probably won't be pretty. You can use whatever word fits to complete that sentence for you. You are your most important blank. So it could be you are your most important family member, you are your most important patient, you are your most important client. Whatever word reminds you to put yourself at the top of your list. Today, I want to talk about what I call the best/worst thing that ever never happened. I think really the key here is that there are a lot of things in life that we cannot control. One of the very few things that we can truly control in this life is our response to situations. If I have labeled something as bad, I get locked into resisting and trying to change the situation. In many cases, I may discover that there were some good results of bad situations once I get a little distance from that situation. Now, let me say this. There are some things that are always going to hurt. And I'm not trying to say that you have to try to put a silver lining on something that you just plain old are never going to like. However, I think those situations are hopefully pretty limited, and that there are a lot of situations that maybe are not good or bad, or could be both good and bad. But when I have decided from the jump that it's bad and I don't like it and I hate this, then that puts me into a certain kind of response instead of maybe keeping a little bit more open mind and trying to figure out how I can go forward in a productive way given the situation. So, self-care check-in questions for today. What is something that is currently going on in your life that isn't going the way that you would like? If you could detach from the bad label, bad, for a moment, what might be some positive aspects of the situation? So, my answer is we don't have to call sad situations good, and we don't have to be thankful for things that we are grieving, as I said a few minutes ago. Here's an example. One year when I was organizing Special Olympics, I could not get a date with a good forecast. I could not. Most years, the weather would turn out pretty on the first day that I chose. During that particular year, I had to schedule the event 3 times before I could get a day that would work. It was a huge event, like 500 participants, much less the family and friends that came to support our athletes. And it was hard enough to do the work required one time, much less to redo it twice because of the storms. Although I know people understood, I'm a person of my word, and sincerity is very important to me. It feels like the worst thing when I can't deliver on something that I said. In the end, we did get a really lovely day to host our event, and everyone enjoyed it. I am probably one of the very few who even still remembers how many times we rescheduled. That is an example of something that felt like the worst in the moment. And if there was something I could have done to have changed the forecast, I would have done it. In the end, it all turned out okay. So here's the quote. In fact, I will go so far as to send you on this adventure. Very amusing for me, very good for you, and profitable too, very likely, if you ever get over it. And that was J.R.R. Tolkien from The Hobbit. In fact, I will go so far as to send you on this adventure. Very amusing for me, very good for you, and profitable too. Very likely if you ever get over it. So I believe it was Gandalf sending Bilbo on an adventure. My husband could correct me if he was here, because he is a huge Lord of the Rings fan. And the adventure was going to be difficult, but Gandalf thought that it would be good for Bilbo in the end. The song that I want to leave with you is Mean by Taylor Swift. Taylor might have thought that the bullying was the worst thing at the time, and I do not want to invalidate how stressful it can be to be bullied. That is a real thing. However, the song makes it sound like it turned into an impetus to get her to reach for her dreams. The video is about something very near and dear to my heart, which is Post-it notes. And this is a business story that is probably pretty widely known. It took a long time, like years and years and years, to get Post-it notes to be sold. It started with the company. They were sort of like, if you've ever heard of companies that give their employees sort of some time in their week to develop like just independent projects, it was that sort of thing. And they were trying to develop this adhesive. So they developed this adhesive, and then they weren't really sure how to use it. It didn't work for the original purpose that it was developed, for which it was developed, but it was still, they thought, good for something. And so this went on for years and years and years. And I mean, like, I want to say like 7+ years that this went on, that these people who had developed this were trying to find a use for it and believed in it and wanted to use it in some sort of product. So they would have all these meetings, and they would do market research and try to get it released, and had rejections several times along the way. And so I'm sure at the time those rejections seemed like the worst thing that could ever happen. But it turns out that with it happening a certain way, it led to the Post-it note, which is one of the most successful office supplies of all time. I think at one point they were going to make a bulletin board that had the adhesive on it, and so that when you put paper on it, it would just come off easily. And that might have been very good and very useful. We don't know. But I mean, I can't get much accomplished without a Post-it note. So I am very grateful that it worked out the way that it did, even though it might have seemed like to the creators that it was the rejections that they were experiencing were the worst things at the time. It turned out something really wonderful came from that. So I will put the links in the description. Also in the description, you will find the link to my Teachers Pay Teacher store. There is a free download there that is a self-care menu. It has 100 ideas for self-care. There is also a self-care plan that has 3 journal prompts with it if you need that. Please subscribe so that you can be aware of when I publish self-care content. Other than that, if all hearts and minds are clear, I will see you all next week.